Hey, happy Tuesday. Happy book review day. Today's book is Mark Twain by Chernow. This is the newest and latest, I guess, biography of Mark Twain, and it's big. I had to return it to the library, which is why I just have the piece of paper here. If you don't know, in the past, I studied Mark Twain. That was part of my graduate studies, it was part of my dissertation, and those things. And so I've read a lot about him. And this book, what it does in its, I don't know, 900 and some pages, 1,200 pages? 1,200 pages, sorry. I had to look up and verify it. Is it really does a wonderful job distilling many pieces of research into one source. So, previously, if you wanted to learn this much about Mark Twain, you really had to read 20 or 30 different books that all had very unique focuses on about his life or about his investing, his writing. Each of those pieces ends up being kind of its own scholarly study. And what Chernow does really is synthesize all the information and give you one book that does it all, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, he really covers the complication of Mark Twain. He constantly is contradicting himself. On one hand, he reads all of Jane Austen. On the other, he hates her and writes how terrible she is and how he wishes he could dig her up with and beat her over the head with her own shin bone. And and there's lots of moments like that. There's whether it's about religion, where he is God fearing. Sorry, we have a storm going on. But also dismissive of religion and faith in general. There is the embracing of science and the questioning of it. There is the politics that kind of flip and flop at different times. There's, he's supposed to be a great businessman, but he goes bankrupt and has to live in Europe and do speaking tours and things like that to earn his money back. He's supposed to be transparent and kind, and yet he does some things like puts all of his creative works in his wife's name to protect him from people who will come back and potentially claim that money. So he is very much a complicated person. I mean, if you don't know anything about Mark Twain, this book will do a great job of really giving you a very deep, profound understanding of who he was and his complications. He's not just the white guy or the white old guy in the white suit, who wrote Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. There's so many other pieces to it. And in fact, one of my favorite parts of his life is his later part of his life. Previously, he had William Dean Howells as an editor. His wife Livy also was an editor of his things. And when those people leave his life, either through death or professional difference, Mark Twain is free to kind of write what he wants without those filters. And that is some of the more interesting writing from my standpoint. So, and Chernow does a nice job of looking at those writings as well. And a lot of it comes about as a result of going to Europe and being overseas for a number of years. And then by the time he comes back, he essentially is a modern day celebrity. His writing, for the most part, the stuff that really made him famous, is in the past. And what he's really known for are these quick quips and always having something for the newspapers to print, and just being engaging in that way. So what you get in Twain is really an interesting perspective on modern day reporting and that celebrity status that was really new at the time. Not to say there weren't more famous people before or after, but he really encapsulated a lot of those things that we see in modern day celebrities now. So Chernow's Mark Twain does a really good job of that. I'll say, if I have one critique, it's not the most engaging writing, and it feels a little repetitious at times. Like, personally, I like the Ron Powers biography a little bit better, but it's not as in depth as Chernow's book. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you want something that will give you the full swath of his life, and really, I mean, he does a great job digging into different stories that you've never heard about, and all the novels you have and the short stories you have, telling lots of little stories along the way. Chernow does a great job of that. It just, I don't know. It didn't resonate with me quite the way that the Ron Powers biography did, and probably just a different style of writing. I don't know. So, yeah, if you're looking to learn about Twain, definitely checking out Mark Twain, Ron Chernow. And, if you're a Twain scholar, there's probably something new in there for you. Um, for me, the thing that I was reminded of, and maybe didn't even really fully comprehend previously, was Chernow talks about Twain being a self-published author. And I knew a lot of his books were sold door to door and by subscription. I didn't think about who was fronting the money there. And early on, Twain was publishing his own things. So then he reaped the full benefit of it, but he also bore the brunt of the cost of it. And so it's interesting to think about him as a self-published author. And of course, I can't help but think, what would he think of KDP and, Instagram, what is it, Ingram Spark, and Swords, all the different platforms that allow people to self-publish. But anyway, yeah, if you read it, let me know what you think. And otherwise, what are you reading?